Prague is again the battleground of ideologies.
The year is 1948 and Czechoslovakia has fallen under Soviet rule, a rule that would last until 1989, and everything, including the film industry, was under strict regulation, as the Soviet model of socialist realism was rapidly and extensively applied.
This influenced the film industry as socialist realism prescribed a standardized plot, as it represented society not as it was, but as it ought to develop, and the ideological class bases of the characters were often made verbally explicit. In essence, the official Soviet realist system encouraged the production of grossly distorted representations of actual life and actual systems. This pushed films to represent and reflect the ideas and ideals of Soviet Union and encouraging what they desired to be dominant ideology in society. The Marxist reading can be viewed with these films as Marxists favoured an aesthetic of progressive realism which opened up social criticism, and these Czechoslovakian new wave directors and films appeared veering away from socialist realist orthodoxy. In what appears to be a pamphlet advertising the festival of new Czechoslovak cinema, it writes that these young filmmakers are running the gamut from neo-realist cinema verite to Kafkaesque and highly avant-garde works.
Firstly, using the example of Larks on a String to show how Czechoslovakian new wave filmmakers condemn Soviet rule. The film's messages are strong through its depiction of political oppression, government-promoted disappearances, and forced labor camps. Despite being filmed after Stalin era, it takes that era on and addresses it with full force.
The film was shot in 1968 to 1969 during a brief moment of political liberalization, but was banned by the communist regime before it was even released, and was only unbanned in 1990 when the country was freed from communist rule. The first few shots of the film quickly establish what to expect with the film and its messages. The first shot is a wide shot of a steel manufacturing factory. This serves as a symbol of a proud, successful industrial landscape that is reflective of its nation. This seemingly positive depiction holds slightly before we are thrown down into the junkyard, where amongst everything a poster reads, "Why shouldn't we be glad to work when we are working for ourselves?" These posters are used as motifs throughout, with others saying, "We aren't afraid to work, we'll exceed our plan," and "Work is a matter of honour for you." This stark contrast of ideal versus reality destroys the illusions of Soviet regime. This is symbolic of Czechoslovak New Wave itself, breaking away from socialist realism. The film also mentions the penal code, which was a code that described everything that would be deemed a criminal act. Part of this included a punishment for speaking out, which Menzel shows us throughout the film, particularly when the dairyman and philosopher working in the junkyard disappear after speaking out. For example, when he said, "If you impose norms on us which you haven't discussed with us according to the rules." To conclude, Larks on a String is a powerful political film that takes on the Soviet Union and its control of Czechoslovakia, and condemns it strongly as it exposes exactly what socialist realism wanted to hide from its people and the world. Next, I will be discussing Daises by Vera Chytilova. This film was released in 1966 and is best described as a farcical and artistic film. It follows two young women on their carefree lives of pranking. The first films of Foreman, Chytilova and Jiri offer striking contrast to the sanitized and propagandist view of reality. The film can be seen as condemning Soviet rule through its content seen in the subversive nature of the women as they live their life hedonistically, contrasting Soviet expectations of women to socially conform and be frugal.
No vlastně ano. Jinak by se to dalo u tebe těžko dokázat. Hele,
In this exchange, soap workers read this to be a sarcastic allusion to the significant bureaucracy and documentation that occurred under communist regime.
But the film rebels the Soviet Union more in its artistic style, with bright colours and experimental editing styles. For example, the dining scene switching colours rapidly, or the train scene which shows the train speeding along the tracks.
The final shots of the film depict a city being destroyed by bombs, and a dedication that comes up reads, "This film is dedicated to all those whose sole source of indignation is a trampled-on trifle." This dedication was added after the film was banned, and it was added as an attack against the hypocrisy of critics. It is criticizing the fact that those outraged at the film focus their anger at the destructive nature of the girls and the food waste it caused, rather than focusing this energy on more serious issues such as the current political climate.
Therefore, we can most certainly view Daises as a political film that at part of its core criticises the Soviet Union with its subversive characters and artistic style. In conclusion, the political film movement of Czechoslovakian New Wave birthed films that spoke out loudly against the Soviet regime and exposed the true nature and conditions. These films could also therefore be categorized as progressive realism, as they have opened up to social criticism, which in itself is also a rebellion as it goes against the Soviet normalized socialist realism.